Thank you for coming. I wanted to talk about Vermintino this evening, and I joke and I say every time I do one of these, I'm like, this is one of my favorite grapes. I absolutely love Vermintino, and for many reasons, and it's interesting hearing your stories before we went live, that it was a little hard to find. It can be, especially right now, and I'll get into the reasons why, but first let's all have a nice cheers.
Hey!
Yay! So is Vermintino new to some of you?
Yeah,
I had never heard of it until this, and then when Dave and I had it this afternoon.
Yeah,
you did have a glass earlier today. Yes.
They're on vacation. I'm still working.
No, but it was. I wouldn't have picked it had I not known about this was what we were drinking tonight. So this is due to you and like the education of this.
This is why I love doing these, because I love, I still enjoy doing this little tour of the grape, because I really want to expand people's horizons rather than just going and buying the same old thing. And if you like Sauvignon Blanc, Vermentino is a really nice alternative, and you may be finding that already when you're tasting it. You get it's a kind of it's dry, but it has a lot of fruity characteristics to it. But what is a little bit different to it, it has generally, depending on where you get it from, has a little bit more of like a herbaceous floral sort of characteristic to it. So it's like Sauvignon Blanc, if it had floral things going on with it. So this one, tonight's call is probably going to be a little on the shorter side, because Vermentino isn't grown everywhere. So I'm really I think you're really going to enjoy the slide presentation and some of the stories from the region that my husband Dave and I traveled to. And first is going to be the region of Liguria. So if you look at your bottle, we have one from Liguria. I know, Becky, you said you have one from California, and it looks like from your bottle, Jenny, it might be Liguria or Sardinia.
I can't tell where it's from. How do I know?
That's what I was going to ask earlier when you showed that.
Hold it up a little higher. Yeah, I'd have to look at the back. I can't really.
The back label will probably tell you.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, looking at the label, it looks like it might be from Liguria.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can type in the name of the producer.
Produced and bottled by. Is Sarzana a place?
So Sarzana is, if it says produced and bottled by Sarzana, then that's the producer. So okay. We can do it while I'm talking. Maybe somebody can do a Google search of Sarzana and see where they're located. I can type.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Okay, that's what I think how it's spelled. I don't know. I just put it in the chat. But so Liguria, if you could go head to the slide, or actually just head to the presentation, and we'll just do the overlay of the map of Italy with the wine regions, and then we'll show you where Liguria is. Many of you may not have heard of Liguria because it's tiny. It's literally like a sliver on the northwest coast.
Uno momento,
yes.
Por favore. This is the Vermentino. Here we are. So we're up here, which is actually when I Googled it, that's where her area is.
Yeah. So, last week you guys were all on the call. We were talking about Piedmont, which is the orange area. So Liguria is just south of there. And literally, like I said, a sliver on the coast. If you want to cut to the next slide. It just kind of dials into, so this is, here's the region.
Here's the region.
It's like a finger. And this area is amazing. It is the Italian Riviera. So when we were talking about Piedmont last week, you know, you don't have, it's not a Mediterranean climate, but yet these two regions are right next to each other. Mediterranean climate, so it's so beautiful. Like the flowers, there's always flowers in bloom. They grow everywhere. Colorful houses are like all dotting, they like hug the cliff sides, and it's really spectacular. It's also where you can see on this map how it's dialed in with colors here. And my husband Dave and I, we went to Cinque Terre, which is he's there, and it's this tiny little blue area. But then overall, all of Liguria, 65% of the region is mountainous. Like that's pretty crazy. So as I mentioned, like it's right next to Piedmont, which is more hilly, but the mountains are sort of in the background. You know, the climate is much more like Provence. And I want to share some of the pictures while I'm talking. The vineyards here are like vineyards you've never seen anywhere. So here's one of the most picturesque areas in Liguria. So I mean,
and this is where y'all stayed.
This is one of the villages that we visited. So there's 4 villages that make up, or sorry, 5 Cinque Terre, 5 lands basically that make up this region. And so if you look on that hillside, the top hillside, those are vineyards.
Yeah, these are vineyards up here.
Yeah, and like it's just so magical. It's really, like, I joke and I say it's so hard to take a bad photo in this area. You know?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, amazing. The water was so warm. Like we were there like towards the end of October, and we were swimming in our bathing suits here. Like it was just so warm. And so some of these vineyards, you can go to the next slide. They're small plots, and some of them don't have any road access. And so if you look on this hillside here, you can see like how small like these vineyards are. And you don't see any roads coming in and out of there. Like it's just insane. And so you see this coastline. So this is all like limestone, which is why I like this grape so much, is because I love what limestone does to wines. Like some of the best wines come from limestone soil. Because of the way these vineyards are, it's extremely difficult to harvest. So, and without road access. So these guys can't come in with trucks and harvest. They have to walk in with baskets and load everything up by hand and walk out and meet the truck on the closest road. You can head to the next slide. So it sounds like romantic, but look at this guy. Like that is hard work.
So awesome.
That is hard. I mean,
that was so cool.
I like the hair on my arms are sticking up because I'm just like, that to me, like, it just is so dizzying to like be doing this insane amount of work. And then you look over and you feel like you're going to like roll down the hill. It's just insane. And you can cut to the next slide.
And that's all grapes in the basket?
Those are all grapes. Yeah. So they don't grow, go back. They don't grow like we'll do a Sicily thing one day, and you know, they have like capers, and there's no olive trees here that they do harvesting. It's just like everything that's along this coastline that's planted agriculture are for grapes.
So can I, if I can jump in real quick.
Totally.
One of the cool things, there's 5 towns, right? Cinque Terre is the 5 towns. Is really, Cinque Terre is 5 territories or 5 lands, whatever that literally translates to. There's no cars. Like this is a city. I don't know which one this is.
It's all right. That's not
where we stayed, but
we don't have to worry about. Yeah.
There's no cars allowed in here. Like you have to park. If you go here, you park kind of where this guy is standing, and then you take your bags out of your car, and you drag them down the hill into the town, and you leave the same way. Like this is how there's no cars that are
None of
allowed
the
here, except for like,
right.
you know, like maintenance and
Right.
deliveries and things like that. And yeah, so anyway, I'm sorry.
Which is great because the whole area is an UNESCO protected area. And so that's also why there's no cars that are allowed there in all of those 5 towns. But when you go there, you can either, there's a really famous Rick Steves, if you know who Rick Steves is, he sort of put this area on the map for United States citizens because he had a show on PBS, Big Travel Guy. You can hike, like a lot of people do this hike, and it's not like a beginner's hike at all, as you can see what this guy's doing, throughout all of the entire towns. There's a trail that connects all these towns together, but then there's also a train that you can easily and very cheaply go and visit like each town. And they're just all, they all sort of look like this. They're extremely charming. Restaurants are all on the coast. Very hardworking town, very tourist driven. So the other thing is,
tower here is just like, doesn't your eye just get called to that? So,
yeah.
cool.
So you've got like Dave said, you know, you can't have cars, and so you got to park on the outside and go in, and then you have boats that are allowed to come dock at some of the areas and that's the other way that you can access Liguria, or Cinque Terre, I should say. So before I get into talking a little bit more about the wine, I just want to share the next picture about how they also harvest. Look at that. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And you can see the vineyards like in the background of this guy. I mean, he's literally, this is like it's like a little roller coaster sort of thing. I don't know. they like, I mean, it's just not fast or anything, but this is just how they have to work because there's no roads that go in. And one of, or I shouldn't say one, but many of the producers there, like when you go to, for example, like Napa Valley, you know, you go to the winery, and for many instances in their backyard are their vineyards, you know, and they're just one long contiguous vineyard. Whereas if you go to Liguria, and if you want to go wine tasting, you hop in a truck and they go, and I should just say, if you want to see the vineyards as opposed to wine tasting, they're like, well, we have to drive here, then we have to get back in our car, and we have to drive here, and then we have to get back in our car, and we have to drive here. So they just own these tiny little plots, and you can see like in some areas here, there's like maybe like 20 vines. And so Liguria does not produce a lot of wine, obviously, but the wines, they're just like as natural as can be, and they just have so much character. And tonight we're just focusing on Vermintino, but they also grow a couple other different whites, and they grow a couple other different red wines. Any questions before or comments? Everybody, are you enjoying your wine?
Yeah, no, this is just fascinating to see like how different, like what they have to deal with landscape wise. It is so, I think one of the things I've continued to learn through these series is like, you have an idea in your head of what a vineyard is, right? And like, whether it's the week that they were all hanging above, or now they're on the side of the thing, like there's so many different ways that wine is made and what each thing goes into that. That's where I'm expanding my knowledge, because the few vineyards I've been to have kind of all been kind of similar, the same thing. So it's been fascinating to see what different ways that they take grapes and where they grow and what they do with them. So.
And how, and it's crazy. I mean, Italy is like vines are in every region. It is the only country next to Spain where every region is planted to vine. It's not like that in France. Like it's obviously not like that in the United States and other new world countries like Australia. They literally like are blessed with they have the ability in every region to be able to grow grapes. It's outstanding. I mean, the whole entire country has like over 2,500 different varietals. I mean, if you're wondering like why sometimes, you know, we talk a lot about Italian wines, it's just because there's just so much to talk about.
Well, it's amazing to like that they were just like, we should grow on these steep hills. This sounds like a great idea. And it's like, why?
Right.
Why would you do that? Like,
right?
What made you think that was
right.
a place to start?
Let me make my life a hell because you know I'm Italian and I love to suffer and I love to complain.
Before technology or anything else like that, we're gonna walk up and down thousands of times. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a workout. I just want to share one last picture. from that.
Not
like,
one last picture.
It
There
is
must be more
just
than one.
like, well, I mean, from the region. Or
I'm
no,
kidding.
sorry,
I'm
we have
kidding.
two
I'm
more.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I do.
it's just the most, like, one of the most romantic regions I've ever been to. And I took this picture of this couple. Well, like, I mean, how awesome is that? Like, if you could just go get a rowboat with your significant other with a bottle of wine. And just,
hey, we go for a row.
exactly. And then the next photo is the last one I'll share. So that's Dave. That's like what the town, they're just these narrow roads. And so there's like houses built, or so I should say people live above these little shops, and there's no like Best Western or anything like that.
No cars.
No cars, like, you know, but the people are loud. Like, the people are loud.
the people below our little apartment, or whatever we're going to call it, were loud.
We were across from a bar. Like,
they were having fun.
Like, they were, like, every night, the town drunks are out and about. And you think about the population of this little area. I mean, there's like, it's tiny. And so these guys, they literally just like hang out and watch the tourists. Like, I don't know what they probably work harvest or whatever, but tourism is definitely what drives the economy in Cinque Terre. So getting to the grape, Vermintino, you're noticing that it's very aromatic is the first thing. So if you were, you know, tossing it around in your glass, especially like if you have like a recent, like mine's 2019, it's just explosive. From Liguria, you generally get like very citrusy, floral, herbal. Then when you start tasting it, the first thing you're going to notice is that it's kind of tangy. It's citrusy also on the palate. It has a saltiness to it. And that's because of where it is aligned. When I shared those photos, the vineyards are all on the coast. And so you get these Mediterranean breezes that come up the side of these cliffs, and it's all part of, like, you know, the terroir of the area. It's also got like a bit of an oily texture to it. And so how to like explain what that means in your palate? Like, what did you come back after you had it from lunch? What did you say, Dave? And I said,
I described it as being heavy, but it wasn't. I didn't have it. I was like, there was something about the wine. So Jimmy and I we had pizza at a great restaurant, local, Vermintino, and it was just it was like, if I could feel it, it had too much texture to it. I don't know if that's a bad description.
As far as not like a light and airy white, is like the difference?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree.
Complex. So Vermentino is absolutely complex, meaning this, like, it's interesting that we're having, like, you guys are talking about it in the way that you are, because it's not like just a light and airy white wine that you just quaff on your patio, you know, that you just want to like drink something for like relief because it's hot. You know, it's definitely like a more serious white wine, sort of like the way Sauvignon Blanc is, especially from like Sancerre, where you get so many different layers. Oily meaning just the way that, like you described it as texture and weight. So it also, like, it's sort of like rubs your tongue in a way. I don't know. That's a way that I describe like oily.
Yeah.
It has
it feels like the kind of wine that if you had a bad one, you would know it really quickly.
Oh yeah.
This is not going to hide from you. It's like right there, and I'm going to say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing about Vermentino from Liguria, or anywhere really, it's a wine that's, even though that it's complex, it's meant to be enjoyed in its youth. But compared to some other regions, I've had some older vintage Vermentino from Liguria that will still taste fresh, that'll still hold up in the bottle.
So when you say in its youth, like, how young are we? Are we talking the same year? Are we talking 2 years in? Like, what does that mean?
Correct. So like 2019 from Liguria are just starting to get released. So
Okay.
that's what I mean, like in its youth, like the wine that we're drinking.
So they let it sit for at least a year.
Yeah, so they're harvest, so they've got to work harvest, and so it's nothing is put in oak, everything is done in stainless steel.
Okay.
That's just fresh, and then they release it, and so yes, it's very much meant to be enjoyed in its youth. And when Dave and I were there, you go to these restaurants, and the wine list is majority of their white wines mostly, and it's crazy. Like you will look at, there's like just like a page worth of like Vermintino, and
or Pagato
or Malvasia. Those are the two other white grapes that are primarily grown there. And you go to a restaurant here, like, or even a retailer, and you guys are like some were having a hard time trying to find one, And so Italy in general is very regional, so they're going to drink like what they make there, which I think is pretty awesome. So let's talk about like food, like what really pairs well with Vermentino. Obviously when I think about wine and what I'm going to pair with it, I look at where it comes from. So we're obviously right on the coast. So the main source of protein that they're eating is fish. So perfect fish wine. I mean, not only are you guys enjoying it as a cocktail, like it's the way we're drinking it right now, rather pleasurable, easy drinking, but still complex. Pesto is originated in Liguria, and I cannot wait to make dinner tonight, because this is just I feel like the most magical pairings to me.
I cannot wait to eat dinner tonight.
I think did you say?
I said I cannot wait to eat dinner tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think like everybody may have that like moment where they actually have like that food and wine pairing, and it's just like a light bulb goes off, and they're just like, I get it now. This is one of those pairings for me. That like you've got pesto is pretty rich and it's pretty complex, and it's very aromatic. Because it's just pretty much all basil aside from the other ingredients that go into it. And Vermentino is from Liguria, is just one of those like insane pairings that go really well. If you have friends that are vegetarians, or if you yourself have like a vegetarian dinner one night that's kind of packed with like green veggies, or spring vegetables, like right now, what are we all eating? A lot of zucchini and squash. Green beans are in season right now, even though we eat them in Thanksgiving. So this is a great wine to pair with a lot of those vegetarian or veggies. I'm sorry. Before we move on, there's another wine or grape, I should say. I'm going to type it in here. It's called a Pagato, and this is going to be even harder to find, definitely easier to find at your really geeky wine shops, but it's Vermentino's cousin, and it also comes from this region. And as much as I love Vermentino, I love Pagato even more. But I wasn't going to do an entire like series on Pagato, because I know like it would be really hard for like, I even have like sommeliers that have never even heard of it. So it's definitely one of those super geek but absolutely delicious white wines that you can find. So after my husband and I left Liguria, we drove through the main town or capital of Liguria called Genova. And that's because we were heading to Piedmont. So we took this really beautiful drive and decided we should go this way. So just if you ever go here, or if we ever organize like a trip, we're never going through Genova ever again.
How do you get lost?
Yeah. How do you get lost in Italy, and how do you stress out and keep your significant other calm?
No, in an Alpha that's about to catch on fire, by the way.
Yeah. Nick, remember the story from last week when we got to, that's when it caught on fire. Like, I think the drive from Genova to get to where we were going in Piedmont was maybe 2 hours. It took us 4 hours because we spent, I think, an hour and a half driving around Genova. It was like the movie Vacation, European Vacation, when they just kept sort of like that.
Big Ben Parliament. It was exactly that. So we get to the check-in in Milan. We get to the check-in, and the guy's like, "Hey, I have a 2 car for you. 2 car. One is a lovely BMW, is very powerful, nice car. Other one is Alfa Romeo. I think maybe you want the Alfa Romeo. You're driving around Italy. This is what you want to do." And I was like, "Dude, I want the Alfa. Yeah, like, give me the Alfa." And it's an amazing car. But when you follow the satellite navigation, the thing that's in the center, it's not good. And it's like, and for the first, I don't know, 2 days, it's in Italian. So it's just barking at you. Right.
Like, so there's no stoplights at all. Italy does not have Italy does not have stoplights. Everything is
spent
round.
2 days like going around in circles.
So it's very easy to miss an exit.
On the freeway, so now you found your way to the freeway. Once you get on the freeway, you cannot go fast enough. There's no way to actually go fast enough on an Italian freeway, unless like maybe you're in like a supercar or something. There was no end of just zoom of people just flying by you, going about 130 miles an hour. It's insane.
Yeah, and definitely, I really want to hopefully one day do a wine trip all together, because it really does, you know, just to recap a bit on Liguria, like, you know, to talk about, or to recap on just how unique that region is and the way that the vineyards are situated, like just, and how they're harvesting grapes. Like, it's just unbelievable. Unlike, you know, so many other areas on the planet. So really, really special. And that's part of the reason I think when, you know, we do these and we learn more about all this, I think it helps you like sort of fall in love with the grape a little bit more, you know, because you're learning about where it comes from and the hard work that goes behind it. And like, to me, I like to say, I taste the labor of love in the glass. Like, I mean, you can go to Bordeaux and easily like get in a car and like, you know, they can go drive their little truck and harvest the grapes and they charge like a ridiculous amount of money for the wine. These wines are really inexpensive. Like, Jenny, how much was yours?
It was less than 20 or around 20.
Yeah. How much were the ones you got, Becky?
The California was 22. And then I think the Italian was like maybe like 18, 19.
Yeah. And is that
it wasn't my $7 steal from last week, but you know.
Yeah. And is that one a liter bottle? It looks like it might be a liter bottle.
So this one is cool. The California one, it's a bottle cap is what it was. Yeah, it was like, I was like, I have to have that one just because it's interesting.
It looks like, the way you're holding it, it looks like a liter in your hand. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it is. No, it says 1 liter. Yep.
Yeah. So standard bottle, 750 ml.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. You should type in the producer.
Yeah, that's what's just doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really fun. And I'll finish up and we're going to talk about domestic Vermintino. So the next area in Italy where Vermintino is widely planted is Sardinia. Has anyone been fortunate to have visited Sardinia?
Not yet.
Me either. You can put up the slides.
We're waiting for you to put the trip together so we can all sign up.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, we may be banned soon from traveling to the EU.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
We'll have to get that rowboat.
Hey, Nicole, if you'll put it together, I'll wear 2 masks.
Yeah, right? Or we can just get a rowboat. We can just like, you know, I'll get in a boat and
Right, there we go.
yeah, let's just paddle there. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, so here we are. You can see where it is in regards to the mainland of Italy. So the area where Vermentino is grown is the orange. Every week it's like Dave's favorite color that I'm talking about. So the very northern end of Sardinia, northeast there. So a rather large area for given the fact, you know, of the island. And you can put up on the next slide. It's just, does that look anything like?
Flat.
That looks lovely.
Right. that looks a lot easier to control. So we don't have these drastic mountains that hug the coastline here. You also notice the soil here. It has a little bit more of a reddish color to it. So we have limestone, but we also have clay. And this region is also a lot warmer than Liguria. Liguria gets really cooled down by the ocean breezes, which happens in Sardinia as well. Interesting about this region is that it's taken a long time for them to really come around and want to make world-class wine. There's other things that are, that they have there agriculturally speaking, but only until just recently are people starting to take grape growing more seriously. And Vermintino is one of the more widely planted grapes. There's also a lot of red grapes that are planted there. I think for about 4 centuries, Sardinia was under Spanish control. And so there are a lot of red varietals. And Grenache is one that's grown there, and it's known as Cananao. And it is, if you can get your hands on a bottle of Cananao from Sardinia, amazing. Just one of my favorites. I'll type it in. And the difference, it's interesting to me being on, as far as Vermintino goes, on the wholesale side where I'm working with wine buyers, why Sardinia is more popular with them compared to Liguria. Because to me, the Liguria ones, they just have so much more life in the bottle. Like, I feel like a lot of time, Sardinia and Vermentino just falls a little flat, especially as more air gets into it. I've had this wine in my glass before we started. It's going on an hour now, and it still is just as vibrant as it was when I opened it. To me, like, through the years of all my tastings and things, like Sardinia and Vermentino, very few, there are some, can really have that sort of power. And I know it's getting better. So again, this is a video that we're recording in 2020. If it gets popular on YouTube, somebody's going to say, you're fucking wrong. One of I will put, Paula is my favorite Vermentino producer from Sardinia. It is honestly, and it's very affordable. It's seriously just it's the closest thing that I can find that is extremely fresh, and it doesn't fall off, and it has all these characteristics that I look for when it comes to Vermentino. Something that's refreshing, something that's complex still, something that has really nice citrus notes to it, something that's going to pair really well with fish. The other thing that is, and with that, is that I can find a Paula Vermentino that may not be like a current release, like 2019, for example, which we're drinking. It could be 2017, 2018, and it's still going to be delicious. That is really, for me, like right now, 2020, what I've been finding through the years really uncommon in Sardinia. And I feel like I get a lot of exposure, like especially having lived in San Francisco, and like it's just doesn't, the Sardinian Vermentinos, it's just very few that really do it for me. They sort of just get, all I can describe is like they just sort of fall off, and then they get oxidized really quickly in the bottle, and that is because a lot of the producers have not taken on like modern winemaking techniques in order to make their wines more world class, because they were just making it for like local consumption. I've talked about this in the past, like how a lot of Italian and French families, they just grow grapes for themselves. This is something that's prevalent in Sicily as well. You see this, so this is, I feel like what's been going on in Sardinia is that they're just like, well, I just make a wine for my family, and my friends, and they started buying the wine, so hey, I started export. But it is changing. I want to say, like, I really hope that in the future, like, we're gonna get better Sardinian Vermentino. So, but it's cool. And the other thing that's different that they aren't doing, well, they are doing in Liguria, but not as much as they are in Sardinia. You can find a sparkling Vermintino, which, like, it's not champagne. Obviously, it doesn't come from the region of Champagne, but it comes from Sardinia. It's not Prosecco. It's just considered like sparkling, sparkling Vermentino. In my opinion, better.
I kept hoping I would find one. Like, that's all I wanted when I was like scouring shelves. I was like, maybe there's a bubbly version.
There is.
You found that Frizzante last week. How was that?
I know. That's what I was hoping, that I went back to that wine shop again to look. And I was like, maybe I'll find it again, a diamond in the rough. And I was like, no, not this time.
How was the Frizzante?
Oh, I meant to say it was so good. I opened it with my best friend that Friday, and it was just like so light and delicious. And like, I took pictures. When I went back, I took pictures of what they both were, and I'll do an Instagram chat. But oh my God, it was so tasty. I was like, I'm going to drink that. And the Barbera after the next day too was like fantastic. They're like it's now like my favorite.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It helped also
Sometimes
that there
it's
were
the
$7
next
and
day,
I didn't
right?
have a migraine
The
the next
next
day too. So I was like, okay, good.
We were talking about that today, Dave. The next day, like how things play out differently once you've opened it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I love that story. And so finding like sparkling Vermentino from Sardinia, like you really want to throw like, like sitting in a restaurant, hey, so I'm looking at your wine list, but do you guys have any sparkling Vermentino?
I will have to ask the one wine shop I went to today, because they actually they can purchase, well, I don't know if you have any sources either of getting some, but I know he's able to like order specific things that we're looking for. So I could always tell him to keep an eye out too.
Yeah, like wine shops are really, my sister, she's not on the call tonight, but she lives in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so she used to work in wholesale as well. And so she mentioned after one of our calls, she said that a lot of the wine shops in the city are pretty good at like taking care of customer requests. So
Mm-hmm.
something they don't have, and this goes like, this is the same thing in California, they're pretty good about it. Like I fielded a phone call about that today. Like somebody wanted one of my Pinot Grigios that they don't normally carry in the shop. And he's like, yeah. So he's just like, so he's trying to find a way to fulfill an order. So
Mm-hmm.
take care of his customer. So, what's going on here?
Sorry, that's me. I clicked the wrong button.
Threw me off there. I'm like,
You're good.
the visuals just changed on my screen. I'm trying to talk.
Your producer made a slight mistake.
Yeah, it's all right. So the last thing, that I'll talk about, which is kind of fun, what's going on domestically. We in California, there's probably about 30 producers that are growing Vermentino in California alone. Oh, there we go. I want to go back to that slide. That's Sardinia. So a lot of the vineyards are inland, and so look at that water.
I don't want to go there. That sucks. I don't.
If that was California, that entire little area, peninsula, would be like covered with homes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How breathtaking is that? The only thing that I don't like about it is that there's not waves. So actually Sardinia, you can surf, but obviously not on this particular side.
Not there.
Not there. That's for bathing. And anyway, as they call it in Europe, we're bathing. So getting back to domestic Vermentino.
Sonoma County.
Yeah, so we'll get there. So California, Texas, and for you folks on the East Coast, North Carolina.
Hey.
Interesting.
Yeah, these are the 3 states that have really embraced Vermentino. I want to say that they probably may have some planted in Baja California, so northern Baja. Probably. But I'm not quite sure yet, so I don't want to quote that. But I know, like if they're growing it in Texas and we're growing it in Southern California, they can for sure grow it in Baja. California, of course, being more at the forefront when it comes to Vermentino. As I mentioned, there's at least 20 producers. Rhyme, put that in is one of my favorite. And you may have heard of Tablas Creek. you may have seen it around. It's pretty heavy in retail. Makes a Vermintino, and they're out of the Central Coast. So that's where most of it's planted. We talk about the Central Coast a lot. That's sort of like the workhorse, if you will, of California winemaking. It's kind of bulk wine country, but there's also a lot of these little areas around Santa Barbara like that make really fabulous wines. Paso Robles as well. So I wanted to just talk about this area for right now. So we're up outside of San Francisco. We're in, you can see on the map here, the little green area and like where the dot of where San Francisco is. And so here we are dialed in to this region. So we all know Sonoma. So Sonoma is on outside of Petaluma Gap is the area I'm going to be talking about. And then just over on the other side is Napa. So those areas are all sort of inland. But you can see what's really unique here with Petaluma Gap, this light purple area on the most southern end. It's one of the newer AVAs, so established viticultural area. And when I used to live in San Francisco, this is like one of the main areas that you drive through to get to Sonoma. And it's very like untouched, if you will. It's pretty flat. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily like, oh my God, this is like the most romantic like area that I've ever been to, but it's so influential from its surroundings. So if you think about when we were looking at Liguria and the way it was situated on the map of Italy, and you look at Petaluma Gap, we have two different influences marine-wise going on. So we have the Bodega Bay, which is the Pacific Ocean, which is, you can see it's very exposed there. And then we have the San Pablo Bay on the more southern side. So a lot of the winemakers, or not a lot, but some of the winemakers like Rhyme that I mentioned are really take advantage and are planting varietals that make more sense for this like marine influence. Because I had mentioned all of this coastal influence that you get in especially Liguria, but also Sardinia. So they get a lot of this saltiness to the wine. You get a lot of like the winds that come they come literally howling off of the San Francisco Bay. And you've got a lot of like fog that sits in on this area that burns off earlier than some of the other regions in Northern California. So I just wanted to end on that because I really think like, you know, and try one. I think, Becky, you've got one from California. You can exit out of the map stuff. That's
I do, yeah. It's from Napa.
It is from Napa. Yeah.
Yes,
interesting.
Yes. It's by, do you know I'm not going to pronounce it, the Mathiasen family?
Oh, Matthias. Yeah. They're awesome.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's this person. I was like, I don't know who that is, but I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea.
He is one of the cult producers, if you will. And he's actually one that he does a couple different Italian varietals. Mm-hmm. And definitely a winemaker to follow for California because he makes like very honest style wines. And, you know, you guys have been on the calls for me for a while when I talk about a lot of the manipulation that happens in California. Mathiasen is not at all doing that. He's definitely at the forefront when it comes to Italian varietals. Like, I mean, he's also doing a really fun wine called Ribolla Gialla, which is like, what? Which is like super fun. I'll type that out too. It's a really, really fun Italian varietal. And I think he's actually getting, I think he's actually bringing the wine in. Like, I think the vineyards are in Italy and he's making the wine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So really, really interesting guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know plenty about him. And I'll put his name out here too. And his labels are all really cool and fun. Like, he's definitely someone that has appealed to a lot of the younger sommeliers as well. He just gets it. He gets it that people, well, it's also a passion for him, but like people want like interesting things, you know, they're just sick of drinking Chardonnay. They're sick of drinking Cabernet, you know, they want to taste interesting stuff. So I see some hands. Go ahead.
Yo, well, while you're at that, don't mind me. I'm going to feed the dog.
Sure. Or about to, yeah, go for it.
Speeding time, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourself.
But yeah, that's how the owner of the wine shop, who was there, was saying. He was like, it's like the winemaker's winemaker. Like he's just kind of like, and the 10 do line apparently is like his like low, like and like beginner's entry one, because it's like $20. And it's like after that, it's like everything is upwards to like $100 a bottle or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'll save this one for now.
Yeah, I'll hang with this one. Glad you like it.
Yeah, and the Italian one, I opened the Italian ones. I have to taste test. They're both really good. They're both like very similar in flavor. I think the Italian one's a little bit lighter and a little bit more crisper with some extra like citrus to it, but they're both really tasty.
I know, and that's amazing because like here we are, or here he is in California, you know, and he's able to get this like style that he knows and loves from his travels and tasting in Italy, and being able to do that in California. So he is in Napa. I don't know exactly where his vineyards are. So I don't think, but I could be wrong, but I don't think the vineyards for that wine are coming from Napa. So it will say on the bottle, like bottled in Napa by Bryson or whatever.
Yeah. It just says vinted and bottled in
right.
their family vineyards in Napa, California.
Okay. Excellent. Did anyone else have any other questions or want to share like?
I got stuck in a train station in Geneva during a train strike.
Oh my God.
In Italy. So it's my nightmare city too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much like an industrial city, you know?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell am I going to do here? But luckily some trains started running, but I spent a lot of time in the train station there.
Yeah. I know that they're really trying to build it up to make it more attractive for people to come visit there, because it's really not an area that people think to at all go visit. It would be like, you know, you only have one day in California and like I'm going to like what was Oakland, you know, in like the 80s, you know?
Yeah.
But now Oakland has become kind of a bit of a destination, you know, like it's really been built up more. Or I could say the same thing, like what's some of those crummy towns like outside of LA or whatever, like Tustin, like I'm going to something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I hope this was helpful. Like,
yeah. No, it was a great wine to try. I was like a little confused. Like whenever I drink like just like a white wine, my head like immediately gravitates to like a straight Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Grigio. So whenever it's like something, you're like, wait, what am I drinking? And so it took me a couple of sips to like realize it's a new grape. Okay, what am I tasting? Like, oh, that's right. Okay. And now it's so smooth. It's so easy. It's such a great like light wine to have.
Yeah. Jimmy, you're muted.
I know. I just realized that. No, I agree with what Becky said, because sometimes you go into something and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to be expecting going into this? And so when it's a new grape, I think I shared this with Dave this afternoon with lunch when we had that. I was like, okay, I don't know whether I'm supposed to be expecting a Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Grigio, or like when we've had certain things where we were talking about, like, oh, this one in New Zealand was really tart and grapefruity. So I'm trying not to go into these things, especially with the new grape, expecting or anticipating something, but just really going in with like a clean slate of like, all right, it's going to inform me what it is, not going in with an expectation. And it's specifically with white wines, because I think I agree with Becky, like, especially way before we even got into this, I didn't drink a lot of white wine. So it really came down to like, I used to just split everything between like buttery and sweet. Like that was what was in my head. And now I'm just realizing there's all these different colors and flavors inside of this varietal, that it's not just A or B.
And that's why I also love doing these, because there's so many white varietals. And I think when, you know, in all my years of being in this business, you know, like just thinking outside the box. I mean, there's so many people that just think that's just Chardonnay or Pinot Grigio. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this was, you know, when I was a server from like years ago, but now like people are just becoming more open to trying new things. And I think it's definitely easier to do with a lot of the import wines because they're priced very well. And some of the California wines, like they're still paying for their land, you know, so that's a lot of times why they're so expensive. And I've said this in the past, like when I was single and like when I was dating, and when guys would just be like, oh, I don't drink white wine. And I'm like, you know, and by the time, you know, if we made it past a couple of dates and we're still dating, next thing, you know, they're telling me is like, wow, you really turned me on to like so many white wines.
That's
like,
so funny. Our first date, she asked me, do you like white wine? This was one of the first questions you ever asked me was, do you like white wine? And I was like, sure. I mean, I had no clue what I was diving into. But...
And I didn't disclose what I did for a living at the time.
No.
Well, that wouldn't be fun.
No, I had to like, you know, like when I was single, like, you know, you learn like when you're single, like things to like say and not say when you're dating, you know, like, I mean, it's like a job interview sort of thing. And like, I realized like when I was seeing, if I immediately like said what I did for a living, it was like, ooh, party girl, you know, she likes wine, you know, and like
that's a lie. You're just the secret squirrel. That's all. You like to hide the ball.
Oh, see, I would have thought it would have been intimidating because you're always like, because like what Dave talks about, like now where Dave knows better when the wine list is handed to him, he hands it over. I felt like if you like divulge what you did initially and you're at a nice restaurant, that all of a sudden that guy feels intimidated by, oh shit, she knows more than I do about this.
That's a true thing though. That's actually something that happens.
Like I have a background in psychology, I have a master's degree in therapy, and I don't tell anybody. And she's like, oh, are you judging me? Are you questioning me? Are you learning my life stories? Like I don't have the capacity to do this to everybody, so no.
It's like that.
I have a problem.
Not everybody you encounter is on your couch, like on the
like sometimes you just want to talk and have a friend.
Yeah.
Right? I get that a lot. People are like, I don't normally talk to people like this. I was like, I know, I hear it all the time. Buy me a shot. It's fine. It's always at a bar. It's someone random. They're like, I don't normally just spill my life story. I was like, yeah, I hear that a lot, but all right, it's fine.
You're a professional listener.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bartender for almost a good like 6 years, I think. And yeah.
Which is basically your master's degree in the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Being a bartender that long, right?
You know, I've heard all the stories and, you know, seen all the cries and nothing, of course, to the extent that you have, Becky, but they either choose to come to you or they would come to the bartender, you know.
Exactly.
But better they're going to you.
Or one then the other.
The bar.
Yeah.
The bar's cheaper.
The bar's cheaper and
exactly.
more problems.
I don't blame them. I would go to the bar. It's fine. Who wants to go to therapy?
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, next week I believe is yes, it's Gamay. Because I know it's the day before the 4th of July, and I was like, don't want to do Zinfandel. I mean, that is the quintessential, like, you know, American grape. But we did Zin. It's also like super heavy and not necessarily a great red wine for summer. So I'm trying to stick with like lighter wines that really go well with summer food and the warmer temperatures. And we do grow Gamay in the United States. So if you want to join next week, I'd love to see you guys. France is where it's mostly grown, in the region of Beaujolais, which we'll talk about, which is like, I call it baby Burgundy. So if you love Pinot Noir, this is definitely like something that may be a little eye-opening to you, because having been in the industry again my whole entire career, Gamay is the wine that all of us wine geeks love, and it's one of the hardest ones to sell. And it's just because it's completely misunderstood. And so I look forward to putting together a nice piece for you guys and anyone new that wants to come along. And speaking of which, I want to do, like, hopefully we'll see like a little giveaway, like whoever can like bring some friends, you know, I would love to make a tank top or a t-shirt or something. You know, I'm not trying to become Miss Famous or Miss, like, you know, influencer or anything like that. I just feel like I really talk about wine to make it fun and easily understandable. So that would just be my way of sort of giving back. I don't know if we're like, I'm ready for, whatever, like I'm open to discussion, but,
no, this is amazing. Again, I think like what we've discussed, I think the timing is hard. I think for everybody with it being like summer and like the re-entry of things, I think it's just tougher for some people, which sucks because I was like, I am so happy to come every week. Like I rearrange things just so I can, because like I personally love this. And I think as people like start getting back into it and like everything else, I just think there's a whole new newness of going out and socializing again. So I think there's just like a lot of like conflicts. But
I think I agree. That's the first thing I said to my husband was that, I think like, it's summer and people are just getting back out there and then that's great. I mean, I'm still going to do these. I'm still going to show up, even if it's just like my husband and I looking at each other, and they can catch the recording. And cause I really want to like build on this community and like get more people understanding like actually wine is not that hard to understand. It just takes a little coaching, so to speak.
Agreed.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like what would be helpful to have you bring people and have you like get more people involved?
Me?
No, not you.
I'm like, I don't know.
Us as the audience.
The audience.
I mean, coming from my perspective, I don't think much. Like, I appreciate that, like, I'm coming at it at an 8 o'clock time frame because, like, it gives everyone, like, it gives me a chance, like, I get to come home, I get to, like, work out, I get to shower, I get to eat, and then I get to, like, end my night here. So for me on the East, like, I benefit from it being at 8 p.m. I don't know if that's an issue for anybody on the West Coast or anywhere else. Like, for me, I love it. I think it's perfect timing for me. I just think right now, like, I shared the post from last week on my Instagram, and my like friend immediately messaged like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh my God, why have I not told you about this? Like, you need to do this." But then she was like going away today, so she's like, "Oh, I can't make it, but maybe next week." And I was like, "All right, well."
Yeah. And I wanted to ask Jenny too, 'cause she's on the West Coast, and I don't know if she left the call. Is Jenny, you still here?
I'm back. I got bumped out and came back in.
Yeah. So do you have any input? I mean, you're here, you've been showing up for a long time, and like for me personally, like for me, like it's an escape from like all the noise that's going on, like with
for sure.
But like, so what does this time frame work for you? I mean,
this is great. It's perfect. It's like right before I'm dealing with dinner. You know what I mean? It's like I can do my work and then have this little break, and it's like my little cocktail. So it's perfect. But yeah, and I've mentioned it to a couple of people too, just haven't been able to make it yet, but hopefully we'll get
I
some
also think as Dave's cutting up clips and stuff and you're resharing them, if you're I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook, but on Instagram specifically, is if you're reposting some of these clips on Instagram and a post is something I can reshare to my stories, instead of me trying to describe to somebody what it is, I can show them an insight of what this is. Hey, every Thursday, I'm popping into this. Here's a 1-minute example of the stuff that we're getting in this, And so I think the more you share on your Instagram feed these clips and examples of here, instead of me trying to explain it to somebody about why this is different, why this isn't just another online happy hour, I can just simply say, hey, you ever been intimidated by wine, or do you want to know more? Like, this is what I'm investing in this every Thursday, and I'm learning so much. And they see like a little snippet of it, goes much further than me trying to explain what you do, Nicole. I feel like is me bastardizing it. Me showing people what you do and be able to share it to my feed or my IG stories, then they see an insight, kind of like what Becky just said. And your friends are like, whoa, what is that? And how do I get involved with that? Is way more. If I can show them a clip of what you do, is way better than me going, oh, it's different. This one's different. Like it's one thing coming from me. It's another thing if I can show them you.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you do like some of the outtakes where like we talked about kittens for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
Funny stuff too, right? Yeah.
Or like you shared the clip about like the car catching on fire, like those little snippets of like it's not just like we're sitting here taking notes and like we're all in silence, not having conversations. Like we're all like this is a very social experience. Like we're all laughing and talking about like everything. So like to show the educational side, but like the outtakes where it's like it's not just wine. We also talk about kittens and cars on fire.
You do have pictures of that photo or that car on fire. or up in smoke. But yeah, no, I for sure, like, this is, so I've, obviously this is my business, so I do some research too. And I've hopped on a couple, the reason why I'm not going Instagram live with these is because you've got people.
Oh, I don't think you should do that.
No, I just definitely not. But what I'm getting at is that I've gone on to a couple just to see what they're doing. And I've also gone on a couple like Facebook ones just to see what they're doing. And I've watched other like recordings on Instagram. I had to say a lot of them are boring. Like they're like I didn't want to create like a classroom environment. I don't want to have like a winemaker on and it to be like a lecture, because like that's just like, really, would you tune into that? Like, just if I was to have like a winemaker come on and just him talk for an hour. I mean,
no, I like the interact. I like
for an hour now.
I like the participation thing of this. And if you had one of them on, I would want you to ask a question, us to, like, I like the back and forth of this, that you're not just talking at us.
Totally. Yeah. Like, I mean, and I like the geeky side. I want to hear the more informative what's happening in their vineyards at this particular time, but they're speaking at like an advanced level, like if they're talking about pH and they're talking about, like those are things that you're just going to be like, what? Like, so I just want it to be fun. And I do think like that Dave could probably do like a 1 minute highlight from, they've tend to been around the 3 minute mark. And I do put them, I've just started, I should say, since he's taken over the production of putting them on my Instagram TV. And so if you've looked at my Instagram feed as from a business perspective, I have a running theme. And so I really like the vibe of, so it's like a storefront. So it's like basically like you go and visit my Instagram page. Like, I just don't want it to be like cluttered with like, video clips and things like this. Like there's like a certain like feelness to that, to what I'm trying to build there. But yeah, I think doing little 1 minute clips and things is definitely awesome. And I love Becky's idea of the little like, outtakes of like bloopers or like things that were, cars exploding and or whatever, or Laurel drinking her, like,
yeah, but like anyone is welcome. You don't have to be a wine drinker. You could be a beer drinker.
It's a wonderful
you can swirl it.
Of Stella. That's a beautiful bouquet here. It's produced in
Belgium.
Well, it should be anyway.
No, it was actually made in Florida.
I'm empty.
See, now here's the crime. This is a crime against humanity. I grew up, so not everybody knows this, but I went to high school in Belgium. And I've had a few Stellas. Few. Several. A lot. Okay. They're all made in Belgium. This is, again, Jimmy, do we not, I'm pointing at you like you're there.
I'm back here, right.
This is the story we keep telling you about things that are great and they just get bought out by these companies and then they turn them into shit.
Yep.
Mass production because they got popular.
And that's why I'm always saying, like, shop at your local wine shop, because they're the ones that are passionate about the industry and the ones that are trying to find like family owned wineries. Like, I had a gal yesterday on, and we'll wrap this up because I'm looking at the clock, like made a comment. It was a political thing about, wineries that were donating to whatever campaign I won't get into. But I like the thing I said to her, she's like, oh, and this is my favorite winery right now. And I was like, oh, do you know that they're owned by a massive corporation? And she was just like, okay, well, I'm done with that winery. I'm like, yeah, like that's that wine, the wine that she was talking about. You can only get, like, it's not in fine wine shops. Like, it's only in grocery stores. Mm-hmm. And it's because they pay to be in the grocery stores. I mean, I know on the East Coast, like that, you guys don't have wine in your grocery stores, but we do here in California and in some other
areas. A lot of places do. Just Maryland doesn't because we are boring. But
yeah, I know. but I think that's great for Maryland because it forces you to go and find and work with a local business.
Oh yeah, I love it.
yeah, so it's just like that's what I'm always trying to encourage people to do is to shop as locally as you can, because those wine shops, they work with like companies that I broker for, and we wouldn't dare ever import a winery that was not family owned. It's just the core of our, one of the many values and core things about our business is that we work with people that respect the land and aren't interested in being in Costco or anything like that. So but anyway, I gotta go make pesto.
Quality, not quantity. Yes, you do. By the way, this
Pesto sounds great.
Yeah, perfect pairing with
perfect pairing.
I know, I had it earlier. It was so delicious. I had my
come
Trader
down
Joe's
here. It
vegan
smells
pesto
amazing. I'm about to go wave
raviolis.
this in Jimmy's face. It's so.
Bye guys, thanks. I got
Good night,
a
Laurel.
few baby kittens.
Oh, yeah.
I meant to say the other thing was you can be on these calls and not necessarily drinking the wine if you can't find it. You can always still learn, like Laurel.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, bye everybody.
It's more fun if you're drinking, but absolutely.
It's true. Bye, everyone.
All right, good night.